My husband gave my private emails to his sisters for a motherhood intervention. So I filed a restraining order and took our baby away. My name is Rachel. I'm 29, and for the past 3 years, I thought I was building a life with a man who truly loved me. Ethan, 32, and I dated for 2 years before tying the knot. On the surface, it all looked like a picture-perfect love story. We laughed, we traveled, we shared the same values, or so I believed. I come from a small, quiet family, just my parents and my younger brother. Ethan, though, he comes from a whirlwind of a household. Big, boisterous, tightly wound. 4 sisters, all deeply enmeshed in each other's lives, all ranging from 27 to 36, all raised on the belief that family comes first above all else. Their closeness was admirable, until it wasn't. From the moment I entered the picture, they kept me at arm's length. They smiled, sure, but their eyes told a different story, watchful, skeptical, cold. I'm a software engineer. I love what I do. I've built a career that fulfills me, challenges me. But to them, that just meant I didn't know how to be a wife. They followed a more traditional path. Married young, became stay-at-home moms, hosted family dinners every Sunday like it was gospel. Me? I'd show up late from a product launch or an emergency sprint at work, and they'd make offhand comments about how real wives don't let their careers come first. Ethan always brushed it off with a laugh, a kiss on the forehead, they don't mean anything by it. And for a while, I chose to believe him. I played the part. I showed up to birthdays. I picked out thoughtful gifts for their kids. I tried to connect with each sister in my own way, never sacrificing who I am, but always extending grace. And I thought it was enough. 7 months ago, everything changed. We found out I was pregnant. The baby wasn't planned. But once the shock wore off, we were genuinely excited. We painted a nursery. We had quiet moments dreaming about names. I decided I'd continue working after my maternity leave, and Ethan told me he supported that completely. But support, it turns out, can be a performance. And the people closest to you can have motives buried deep beneath their smiles. What came next? I wouldn't wish on anyone. Last weekend, I was invited to what I was told would be a small, intimate baby shower. Just close family at Ethan's parents' house. I was 7 months pregnant, a little tired, a little swollen, but excited. I thought I'd be surrounded by love. I thought this was a celebration. Instead, it was an ambush. When I pulled into the driveway, something fell off. No decorations, no balloons, no cars except those of his sisters. I stepped inside, expecting warmth, but found only cold eyes and forced smiles. His parents weren't even there. No aunts, no cousins, no one but Ethan's 4 sisters, seated around the living room like a jury waiting to deliver a verdict. I should have walked out right then, but I stayed. I smiled. I tried to remain upbeat, even as the oldest sister, Vanessa, leaned forward and said, "We need to talk." Seriously. And just like that, the walls came down. What followed was 2 full hours of them tearing me apart. Emotionally, psychologically, piece by piece. They called it a motherhood intervention. I call it cruelty disguised as concern. They had printed screenshots, yes, actual printouts of private messages between Ethan and me. Things I'd written in confidence. Vulnerable moments, late-night worries, offhand comments from years ago. Social media posts from before I was even married. Emails I sent my own mother where I voiced the very normal anxieties of becoming a first-time mom. They went through them, one by one, as if building a case against me. You complain about back pain. How will you handle sleepless nights? You're always working. How will you bond with your baby? You don't cook. How will you nourish a family? At one point, one of them actually suggested I quit my job and let Ethan's mom move in with us to teach me how to be a proper mother. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like I was drowning in a room full of people who were smiling while holding my head underwater. I asked, through tears, how they even got access to these private messages. And that's when they said it. Ethan gave them everything. He gave them my texts, my emails, my personal thoughts, because he was worried about my attitude toward motherhood. My hands were shaking when I stood up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just left. My heart pounding, my baby kicking in protest inside me. I drove home on autopilot, blinking back tears. And when I got there, I confronted Ethan, still hoping, somehow, that there was a misunderstanding. But he didn't deny it. He didn't even look ashamed. He calmly said he agreed with what they did. That he gave them those messages because they were trying to help me. That I was too emotional because of the pregnancy and couldn't see how much they cared. He betrayed me, and then gaslit me into believing it was love. bake. I didn't scream or cry in front of him. I just left. I drove to my parents' house with one hand on my belly, praying that my daughter couldn't feel the way my heart was breaking, that she was safe even if I wasn't. I'm still here, 7 months pregnant, shattered, questioning everything I thought I knew about the man I married, about the family I married into. And the worst part? They say they did all of this because they care, but I've never felt more alone. The first few days after I left Ethan were a blur. I stayed at my parents' house, barely speaking, barely sleeping. I was 7 months pregnant and walking around like a ghost. My parents were furious, especially my dad, who kept pacing the house, muttering about how no man should ever put his wife through this. Meanwhile, Ethan kept calling, texting, switching tones every few hours. One moment, he was apologizing, telling me he never meant to hurt me. The next, he was lecturing me, saying I needed to think about the family and stop being so dramatic. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hand would literally shake whenever his name appeared on my phone. But 3 days later, I needed answers. So I agreed to meet him in public. Neutral ground. Aqui café. I made it clear this wasn't a reconciliation. I didn't want flowers or empty apologies. I wanted truth. Like I was far worse than I could have imagined. This whole intervention, it wasn't a last-minute reaction to a few texts or a sudden concern about my parenting. It had been in the works for months. Since the day we told his family I was pregnant, they'd been collecting things, saving my messages, screenshots, emails, comments I made on Instagram, conversations I had with Ethan in confidence, some of them years old. They even gave it a name. The Motherhood Readiness Assessment. No, I'm not joking. They had an actual folder. They'd spoken to their church pastor, asking how best to guide me onto the right path before the baby arrived. Not support. Not understand. Correct. Ethan told me all of this without even blinking. When I asked him, point blank, did you ever plan to tell me any of this? That they were spying on me? That you were helping them? He just sighed and said he'd been waiting for the right time. I asked him something I already knew the answer to. If I never change, if I stay the way I am, career-focused, independent, still a good mother, but not what your family wants, do you even want to stay married to me? He hesitated, and in that pause, the last bit of hope I had died. When he finally spoke, all he said was, I just want what's best for our child. And that means a mother who puts family first. As if I wasn't already doing that. As if working hard to create a safe, stable life for my daughter was somehow selfish. As if every late-night cry, every doctor's appointment, every kicked rib hadn't already been proof of my devotion. I held it together until I got to the parking lot. Then I collapsed into the driver's seat and cried so hard I could barely breathe. That night, I called a lawyer. I didn't know what exactly I was going to do. I was still pregnant, still emotionally shattered, but I needed to understand my rights. What custody would look like, what protection I could put in place. I also called my OB-GYN. I told her everything. She immediately scheduled more frequent checkups, just to make sure the stress wasn't harming the baby. She also referred me to a therapist who specializes in prenatal trauma and betrayal. I've already had 2 sessions. It hurts. It cuts deep. But for the first time, I don't feel like I'm drowning in silence. I feel seen. I've also decided not to stay with my parents long-term. They live an hour from my work, and I need some independence back. So I've signed a lease on a small apartment nearby. It's not much, but it's mine. A place where no one is tracking my messages or pretending to love me while secretly trying to change who I am. And just when I thought I'd heard it all, Ethan's family shifted tactics. His mother called me, crying. She said she just wants to help her grandchild grow up in a stable home. She suggested we all attend family counseling with their church pastor. Yes, the same pastor who advised them on the intervention in the first place. I said no, and I didn't explain myself. But then, something I never expected. Emma, the youngest sister. She's 27. She reached out to me, privately. She apologized. She said she felt forced to take part in the ambush. That her older sisters pressured her, and she regrets everything. She's the only one who's shown an ounce of humanity. It doesn't fix anything, but it helped. Right now, I'm focused on 2 things, my baby and my peace. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know this. I will never let them break me again. It's been 3 weeks since I left Ethan, and every day has brought a different kind of storm, but also a little more strength. I moved into my new apartment last week. It's small, just a 1-bedroom on the 3rd floor, but it feels like freedom. It smells like fresh paint and clean beginnings. It's walking distance from my office, and just a short drive from my parents, who have become my lifeline through all of this. My mom has been coming over almost every day, helping me unpack baby things and stock the freezer with meals. My dad brought his toolbox and installed every bit of baby-proofing hardware like he was building a fortress. For the first time in weeks, I started to feel like I could breathe again. But just when I thought I was creating distance from the madness, Ethan changed his strategy. The apologies stopped sounding remorseful. They started sounding desperate. Gifts began arriving at my new place. Diaper bags, candles, baby clothes. No notes, just the growing unease of knowing someone had found out where I lived, even though I hadn't shared my address. Then he started showing up. Once in my office, he walked in holding flowers, smiling like this was a romantic comedy instead of the aftermath of betrayal. Another time, he emailed me a calendar invite for a surprise couples therapy session with a therapist he chose, without even asking me. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. Last Tuesday, I left work a little late. It was dark. I was tired. I just wanted to get home, kick off my shoes, and eat microwave lasagna in peace. I walked to my car, unlocked it, opened the driver's side door, only to freeze. His mother was sitting in the passenger seat, just waiting. I gasped and took a step back, heart racing, pulse in my ears. For a split second, I didn't even recognize her. Just a woman in the dark in my car in my space. When I finally processed what I was looking at, I asked her what the hell she was doing there. She said she just wanted to talk, that she'd let herself in with the spare key Ethan had kept from years ago. She wanted to clear the air and talk about the baby's future. I told her to get out of my car. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream, but she saw something in my eyes that must have finally registered, because she left, silently, almost shamefully. The second she was gone, I called my lawyer. That night, we filed for a temporary restraining order. It was granted, and just like that, the tide shifted. For the first time, I think Ethan understood that I wasn't bluffing, that this wasn't a dramatic moment in a marriage he could fix with flowers and manipulation. This was war, and I was protecting my child. The next day, I received a formal email. Cold, polite, professional. He acknowledged the restraining order, promised to respect its terms, said he would only communicate through our lawyers from now on. It was the first sane, boundary-respecting communication I'd had from him in weeks. Meanwhile, something interesting started happening behind the scenes. Emma, the youngest sister, reached out again. She's been quietly keeping me updated about the rest of the family. Apparently, cracks are forming. Two of the sisters, Nicole and Bree, are starting to express regret about how everything went down. They're not reaching out to me directly, but they've admitted to Emma that they feel guilty, that they wish they hadn't followed Vanessa's lead so blindly. Of course, Vanessa, the oldest, the ringleader, is still holding the line, still convinced she did what was best, still clinging to the fantasy that she was saving a baby from a working mother who had the nerve to think she could love and lead at the same time. Emma's updates have actually been useful for legal strategy. My lawyer is preparing for custody negotiations, and knowing the internal family dynamics helps. We're documenting everything, building boundaries into our parenting agreements, making sure that when my daughter arrives, she's protected not just from chaos, but from the people who think love means control. I've also started attending a support group for single mothers. At first, I felt awkward, like I didn't belong. But after hearing their stories, I realized I wasn't alone, not even close. Women with strength in their spines and scars on their hearts. Women who'd walked through betrayal and came out carrying more than just pain. They carried wisdom and hope. I'm holding on to both right now. The violation I experienced, that moment in my car, shook something loose inside me. A final severing. Any lingering thought that maybe Ethan or his family could be reasoned with. Gone. This isn't about being reasonable anymore. It's about being safe and building a life for my daughter where she never has to unlearn the idea that control is love. It's been almost 4 weeks since I walked out of that house and never looked back. And now, at 8 months pregnant, I'm standing on the edge of a brand new life while grieving the one I thought I had. The apartment is finally starting to feel like home. The nursery is nearly complete. Soft pastels, a crib my dad built with his own hands, tiny clothes folded in drawers that make my heart ache in the sweetest way. My mom comes by almost daily, painting the walls with calming words and helping me stock the diaper station like it's mission control. My father? He's installed safety locks, mounted cameras, and insists on doing walkthroughs like a bodyguard preparing for royalty. And in a way, he is, because I'm carrying someone worth protecting at all costs. After the restraining order against Ethan and the confrontation with his mother, things went quiet. He finally stopped pushing, stopped showing up, and began communicating only through lawyers as ordered. And to my surprise, he followed through. No grand gestures, no more guilt-ridden texts. Just cold, efficient messages through our legal channels. Part of me was relieved. Part of me was waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then, out of nowhere, it did, but from the last person I expected. Ethan's father called me. A quiet man, always in the background during family dinners, never speaking much unless asked. I assumed he either agreed with the chaos or didn't care enough to intervene. But his voice on the phone that day, it trembled. He told me he had no idea what his daughters had done until after the ambush, that he hadn't been informed about the intervention, and that once he found out, he was sick over it. He apologized, not just as a father-in-law, but as a man who'd failed to speak up sooner. This manipulation, he said, goes against the values I thought I raised my children with. He asked, very gently, if there was still a chance he could be part of his grandchild's life, even if things between Ethan and me didn't work out. I didn't promise anything, but I told him I appreciated the call, and, strangely, I meant it. It was the first time someone from that family acknowledged that what happened to me was wrong. Meanwhile, therapy has been my anchor. 2 sessions a week now. We talk about the pregnancy, the trauma, and perhaps the hardest part of all, the grief. Because even though I left Ethan, even though I've seen who he really is, I'm still mourning him. Or maybe I'm mourning the version of him I made up in my head. Because the man I married, the one who said he loved my ambition, who celebrated my independence, who said he wanted to raise a child with a woman who challenged him, that man never existed. He was playing a role, waiting for me to naturally evolve into someone more like his sisters, more like his mother, more manageable. I see it clearly now. He never truly accepted me. He tolerated me while expecting change. And when the pregnancy came, he saw it as a deadline, a countdown to finally force that change. But I'm not changing for anyone, especially not for people who believe motherhood requires the erasure of identity. With my lawyer, I've been building a legal plan for what comes next. We're drafting custody terms that prioritize the baby's well-being while protecting my autonomy. Ethan will be involved, but only within boundaries that I approve. Every interaction documented, every visit scheduled, no unannounced guests, no unsupervised handoffs until I'm ready. We've also discussed postpartum protections. The first few months after birth are so vulnerable, and I refuse to be caught off guard again. I'm building a wall of legal, emotional, and physical protection around me and my daughter. And slowly as I do this, I'm starting to feel strong again. Even the small things help. I've gone back to work on light duty, mostly remote. My boss has been incredible, adjusting my schedule so I can rest. My coworkers sent a care package that made me cry. Herbal teas, baby socks, noise-canceling headphones, and a handwritten note that said, "You're already the kind of mother we all wish we had." I'll never forget that. Then there was Emma. Again, she reached out, this time not just to apologize again, but to warn me. She said the sisters were divided now. 2 of them had admitted they regretted everything. Vanessa, of course, still stood her ground. But there was more. Emma revealed something I didn't know. Ethan had been talking to his sisters about our marriage for years, long before the pregnancy, confiding in them about his disappointment in my lifestyle, painting me as someone cold, career-obsessed, not nurturing enough, all behind my back. Instead of encouraging him to talk to me, they huddled together and decided they'd fix me themselves. So this betrayal? It didn't start with the ambush. The roots were planted long ago. And when Emma told me this, something inside me finally clicked into place. All the subtle comments, the looks, the jokes that weren't jokes, it had all been part of a plan to push me into becoming someone I never agreed to be. And now, I'm done mourning the fantasy. I'm building something real. For me, for my daughter, and for the version of myself I'm finally reclaiming, strong, clear, and absolutely unwilling to shrink to make someone else feel comfortable. 2 months have passed since my last update, and now, I'm writing this from a quiet hospital room, lit only by a soft lamp and the tiny, perfect soul sleeping beside me. My daughter is here. She arrived last week, early, unexpected, and absolutely breathtaking. The labor was long and brutal, 24 hours of tension and uncertainty. Then, just when we thought we were close, everything shifted. Her heart rate dropped. Doctors rushed in. Decisions had to be made fast. I was wheeled into the OR and delivered her via emergency C-section. And just like that, she was here. My mother held my hand the whole time, whispered strength into me when I was trembling. She was the first person to hold my daughter. The first face my baby saw, besides mine. I had chosen peace over performance, and in that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. Ethan was informed of the birth through our lawyers. As per our agreement, he asked if he could visit at the hospital. I said yes, with conditions. The visit would be short, supervised. My brother would be present the entire time, and no other family members. To my surprise, he followed the rules. He arrived quietly, held our daughter gently, awkwardly, as if she were made of glass. He didn't say much. No declarations of love. No attempts at reconciliation. Just quiet observation, and then he left when his time was up. It was surreal. The man who once plotted with his sisters to control who I became, now asking permission to see his own child. Since the restraining order incident, he's kept his distance. Communication has remained clean, filtered through our attorneys. When it comes to co-parenting logistics, he hasn't pushed back. He's agreed to supervised visits, stuck to the timeline, and hasn't tried to bypass me. Is it genuine growth? Or just a strategy to make himself look better in future negotiations? I don't know yet, but either way, I'm thankful for the silence. Because right now, my world is quiet and full of wonder. And that's exactly what my daughter deserves. 2 weeks before she was born, I received something unexpected. An email from 3 of Ethan's sisters. Vanessa was not among them. The others, Emma, Nicole, and Bree, wrote a long, soul-bearing apology. They acknowledged everything. The invasion of my privacy. The way they reduced me to outdated roles and ignored who I actually am. They explained, not as excuses, but as context, that they grew up in a household where a woman's worth was measured by motherhood, where ambition was seen as neglect and independence was treated as rebellion. They admitted they had projected their own insecurities onto me. And then they told me something that brought me to my knees. Ethan had been complaining about me for years. Not just during the pregnancy, not just after I got the job promotion, but since the beginning, quietly feeding them narratives. Frustrated that I didn't want to stay home. Disappointed that I didn't make time for family dinners. Telling them I was emotionally distant, that I wasn't ready to be a wife, let alone a mother. Instead of telling me, he told them. And instead of encouraging him to grow the hell up and talk to his wife, they created an intervention to fix me. They said they regretted every part of it, but they should have known better. But they do now. I read the email 3 times before responding. I didn't forgive them. Not yet. But I did acknowledge their reflection. I thanked them for finally seeing what they did. I told them my priority now was my daughter and building a safe, stable home where she's never made to feel that love is conditional. They haven't pushed since. They sent a single gift after the baby was born. A soft blanket, a neutral onesie, and a handwritten note promising to respect my boundaries. Vanessa, of course, has stayed on brand. She still believes she did the right thing. I've heard, through Emma, that she's now going through marriage problems of her own. Projection? Maybe, but it doesn't excuse anything. As for Ethan's parents, they've been surprisingly normal. His father checks in via short, thoughtful texts. Never oversteps. Never pressures. His mother, after the horrifying car incident, has kept her distance entirely, communicating only through her husband, which is exactly how I want it. My own support system, though, they've stepped in like superheroes. My parents temporarily moved closer to help with the newborn stage. My brother's taken on the role of unofficial bodyguard and make sure no one gets close to us without going through him first. My closest friends organized a meal train and stocked my freezer with more food than I know what to do with. And my job? They've extended my maternity leave beyond what's required. My team sent flowers and baby supplies. One of them even sent a handwritten note that said, "We can't wait to see the amazing mom you're going to be. And we're saving your desk." It broke me, in the best way. The path ahead is still complicated. Co-parenting with Ethan will require extreme boundaries, careful strategy, and constant vigilance. He's already mentioned that he hopes his family will build relationships with our daughter. Not while I'm breathing. Not unless I say it's safe. So, I'm working closely with my therapist to craft responses and safeguards. Everything from communication plans to visitation protocols. I'm not leaving anything to chance. Because I'm not naive anymore. But I am peaceful. For the first time in almost a year, I look at my baby and I don't feel dread or confusion. I feel clarity. I feel truth. And I feel something I hadn't dared to hope for in a long time. Joy. It's been nearly a year since that so-called intervention, and it's hard to believe how far I've come. My daughter is now 10 months old. She's crawling with pure determination, babbling like she's got stories to tell, and already has a personality that feels like a burst of sunshine mixed with steel. Watching her grow is like watching the world unfold again for the first time, but better. And through her, I rebuilt myself. The divorce was finalized 4 months ago. There was no dramatic courtroom moment, no climactic showdown. Just paperwork, signatures, and silence. Ethan didn't contest my requests. Not for primary physical custody. Not for my stipulations around visitation. He gave in quietly, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of strategy. I don't know. I've stopped trying to decipher his motives. What I do know is this. I have full physical custody. He has scheduled, structured visitation, which gradually increases as our daughter gets older. Every interaction between us is handled through a co-parenting app that records every word. No texts, no calls, just timestamps and receipts. It's not warm. It's not friendly, but it's safe. And for the first time in months, I don't dread his name appearing on my phone. 3 months after our daughter was born, Ethan started therapy. Not church-based, not family-guided, real, clinical, licensed therapy. He says it's helped him understand how deep the dysfunction ran in his family. How much he tried to mold me instead of love me. How wrong the ambush was. How cowardly it was to speak to his sisters about our relationship instead of to me. Do I believe he's changing? Maybe. Do I care? Not really. He's no longer my partner. That door is sealed, locked, bricked over. He knows that now. Every once in a while, he still tries to bring it up. Comments slipped into the co-parenting app like we were really good once, or maybe one day, but I shut it down every time. There is no once. There is no one day. There's only now. And now belongs to me and my daughter. His family? That's been a mixed bag. Ethan's father has been the only one who's consistently respectful. He checks in every now and then, always with grace and restraint. He asks before visiting. He never oversteps. When he sees my daughter, he lights up like the sun, but never forgets who's in charge. 2 of the middle sisters, Nicole and Bree, have remained quiet since their apology email. They send the occasional holiday card, sometimes a birthday gift. They don't push. They seem to understand that their relationship with my daughter is a privilege, not a right. Emma, the youngest, has surprised me most. She left their family church, started therapy of her own, told me she's begun rethinking everything she was raised to believe. She adores her niece, visits with boundaries, always asks, always respects. We're not best friends, but we found something that resembles mutual trust. And then there's Vanessa, still Vanessa. She's made multiple attempts to see the baby, none through proper channels. Once, she left a basket of toys outside my apartment door, along with a note filled with passive-aggressive jabs about how every child needs their full family. Another time, she cornered Emma at a family event, saying she can't keep our niece from us forever. She's wrong. I can, and I will, as long as she refuses to see what she did. Ethan, to his credit, has finally begun setting boundaries with her. It's caused tension in the family, but I no longer concern myself with their inner drama. My job has been a lifesaver. I returned 6 months ago on a flexible arrangement, 3 days in office, 2 remote. And last month I was promoted. Me, a new mother. A woman who was once told that career and motherhood couldn't coexist. I proved them wrong. Every single one of them. I've also started dating again. Quietly. Casually. A coffee here. A dinner there. Nothing serious. Just small reminders that there are men out there who don't feel threatened by a woman with ambition, boundaries, and a baby on her hip. But the biggest shift hasn't been external. It's me. This experience changed me in ways I didn't expect. It forced me to build boundaries I never knew I was allowed to have. It taught me to stop explaining my worth to people who were committed to misunderstanding it. It showed me the cost of staying silent to keep the peace. And the freedom that comes when you stop trying to be palatable and start being whole. I don't let people talk over me anymore. I don't downplay my career to make others feel more traditional. And I don't ignore the little red flags, pretending they're beige. Recently, I had a moment that brought it all home. I was on my laptop, finishing up a client presentation, while my daughter played beside me on the carpet. She giggled, rolled over, reached for my hand. I paused, touched her cheek, and she beamed. That moment, brief, unremarkable to anyone else, shattered Vanessa's lie forever. Because she once told me, in that awful living room ambush, that my career obsession would make me a neglectful mother. And yet there I was doing both. With ease. With joy. With my baby laughing at my feet. I don't think about them anymore. Not often. I don't hate them. But I do pity them. For their small view of motherhood. For their fear of women who won't be molded. For believing that love means control. There's a quote I repeat to myself often, especially on the hard days. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Ethan showed me. His sister showed me. Even his mother. And I'm grateful, now, that I did believe them before I gave them more of my life to ruin. To anyone out there who's being shamed under the mask of family concern, hear me. You are not broken. You don't have to be fixed. You are allowed to protect your peace, even from people who say they love you. Especially from them. My daughter will grow up knowing her mother didn't bend to be loved. She will grow up knowing that love isn't control, silence, or sacrifice. And maybe, just maybe, that truth is the legacy I was meant to pass on. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more real-life family dramas. Let me know in the comments what you think about today's story. Was it fair or totally messed up? See you in the next one.